Good morning, CSL.
Good morning.
Is that better? What can I say? I'm shrinking. Once again, good morning.
Good morning.
By now, you know I'm Marcy, and I'm the reader today. The theme for the theme for 2023 is Living Out Loud. The theme for December is Living in Wholeness. Today's topic is Embracing Wholeness. Our first inspired reading today is from Parker Palmer. There are in all things a hidden wholeness. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, offers this perspective. Every, meaning every person, represents an individualization of universal wholeness, the love, peace, joy, and freedom of spirit. Finally, Eric Butterworth, who is Unity author and minister, wrote, "You are a perfect ideal in infinite mind. You are whole now. This wholeness is the only way the universe knows you." Let us affirm our wholeness together. I am made in the image of the divine, living a whole life. And now I bring back to you Reverend Dr. Kathleen Johnson.
Thank you so much, Marcy.
You are more than welcome.
Thank you, Dean. Let's all breathe. Let's take a breath together. Lovely, lovely. In a grade school pageant, there was a little boy who was chosen to be the innkeeper. And so he had one line. And the one line was, "There is no room in the inn." So he practiced and practiced and practiced. He was in front of the mirror. Every day he got ready. And then it was time. It was the night of the pageant had arrived. And so he was so excited. He got at his place in the stage behind the cardboard door that was representing the inn. And Mary and Joseph walked across the stage. And Joseph said, "Do you have any room in your inn?" And he stood there and he looked at Mary and he looked at Joseph and he said, "Come on in!" I know, come on in, right? Our wholeness, our true nature, this wholeness that we are, this spiritual wholeness, when our hearts are open, cannot help but spontaneously pour forth kindness, compassion, and service. And this little boy so beautifully represents that. So this month, I have a beautiful quote by Ernest Holmes from his book called This Thing Called You. He said, "There is a spiritual pattern of perfection at the center of your being, which has never been touched by disease or misfortune. It is our spirit essence that is whole. It is the Spirit of God in and as us. It is the intellect and the subconscious self that needs to be renewed." So again, the truth that we are is whole, perfect, complete. It's just the belief structure, right, and the subconscious mind. Any maladjustments in your life will be healed. I'm going to say that again. Any maladjustments in your life will be healed when you realize this perfect center within yourself. A union so complete and perfect that you find no difference between your own being and God. The two are one. The two are one. So powerful. So this month is the call to live our wholeness out loud. And we're continuing with the living out loud. We do that as we recognize, we nurture, and we express the wholeness within ourselves, and also do it with others as well, encouraging others to live a life of kindness, compassion, and service. And this month, we will look at the great way showers, the great spiritual masters from different spiritual traditions for our inspiration and guidance. And today, we lay the groundwork for the rest of December by embracing wholeness. So I'd like to begin with what we call the 4 stages of consciousness. That is part of the spiritual journey. And so as we become conscious and aware of the idea that we are these amazing spiritual beings, we're on this spiritual journey, we can start noticing some patterns in consciousness that aren't serving us. And so that first stage that much of the world is really caught in is called the victim stage, which is life is happening to me. It's the perspective of powerlessness, and life is happening to me. So there's a lot of blame and shame and discomfort and suffering. And so as we wake up, we realize that, well, I need to do something about this. And we realize that there's something we can do, and we can use the power of our word. And so we begin to do the forgiveness work, because that is the way we move from victim into the next stage, which is called manifester. But we begin to peel away the patterns of victim consciousness, and then as we move into through forgiveness, as we move into manifester stage, we begin to wake up and realize, oh, life is happening by me. That's the next higher level of awareness. So in this so-called manifester stage, we learn how to stabilize our lives, our relationships, our health, our sense of well-being, our careers, and all of those other things. We begin to use the creative process where thoughts become things. Thoughts become ways of manifesting things that we enjoy in our lives. And we learn that the kingdom of God, or wholeness, is within us. We begin to taste that, but then we're not quite ready until we're ready to, now that we have everything stabilized, to let go of the control of trying to make things happen, and then we allow spirit to move through us and as us, our expanded self, you could call it, our higher self. It's a time to let go and to be the instrument of the divine, the vehicle of the divine, the channel of the divine. And that's called the mystic stage. And then beyond that, there is the stage attained by Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, all of the great mystical beings. That is the full realization and expression of unity, divine unity and wholeness. So along that journey, what can happen is we begin to start looking for our wholeness in all the wrong places. When we're in the manifester stage, that's what can happen. We learn to manifest, and it's like, oh, I'm beginning to manifest things. Oh, I can manifest more, and I can manifest more. And we can get stuck in that, which Reverend Michael Beckwith calls materialization. And so I'd like to illustrate that with a story. This is a true story about a man by the name of Ken Behring. He wrote a book at some point in time, but he seemed to be living the American dream. He went from depression, poverty, to being a billionaire in the real estate business, real estate development business. He owned mansions, hundreds of classic cars, a jet plane, and his own NFL football team, the Seattle Seahawks. Yet he felt unfulfilled. He still felt an emptiness in his heart. until a major event turned things around. So in an interview with him, he talks about his process. Now his process is going to be a little bit different from the 4 stages that we just talked about. He had 4 stages, but his 4 stages were like this. Stuff. He called it stuff. Stage 1, stuff. He thought that if he got the right stuff, he would be fulfilled. So he got the nice car, the nice house, the boat, etc. But it didn't do it for him. So he said, oh, well, maybe better stuff. That's his second stage. So he got a better car, better house, better boat, better airplane. Still no satisfaction. So he decided he must be focusing on the wrong stuff. So then he tried different stuff. So this is when he bought the Seattle Seahawks. He invested in a safari business that took people on hunts to Africa, with guns. I'm talking about that. He even got caught for poaching at one point in time. Still no sense of fulfillment, and also getting into a lot of trouble. No peace, no satisfaction. So one day Ken was asked by a friend if he would fly him and a whole bunch of supplies. In other words, it was some canned meat, drop some canned meat off to Kosovo using his personal plane, of course, and to Romania to hand out wheelchairs for kids. And these are kids who had, many of them had lost their legs from stepping on landmines. Ken accepted the invitation. He said, sure, why not? And so he went with this friend. His friend represented the Mormon church. So there was a huge amount of supplies going with them. This was the major turning point in his life. Because as he began to join his friend in handing out wheelchairs to these children, he saw the children brighten up, the tears flow, the thank yous, the gratitude, the hugs, just the sheer joy of it. His heart opened. His heart opened. And so he called this next stage purpose. We could call it the God through me stage, the heart open and being in service. When he returned home in 2000, he started the Wheelchair Foundation, which is, at this point, of course, 23 years old and has delivered over 1 million wheelchairs worldwide. He made the shift out of manifester into a life of service, and so he really, truly dedicated, all the way up until he made his transition, dedicated his life to traveling and to delivering and to implementing this whole process of getting wheelchairs to where they are needed in the world. So places like Africa, Eastern Europe, Central America, Afghanistan, and Ukraine. Again, over 1 million delivered. And still, as I was looking at their website, they still estimate that at least 100 million more wheelchairs are needed throughout the world. So there were a couple stories that he told in an address that he did to Brigham Young University. He was not a Mormon himself, and I never became a Mormon, but he was asked to speak there since they had gotten him kind of started on his journey. He said, when these people come to us, some are driven, some are carried, and some come by wheelbarrow or by hand truck. Some crawl. So he told a story about in Zimbabwe, a fellow crawled on his elbows for 17 kilometers to get to them. He said, we put him in the wheelchair, and he was going around and around. He's like wheeling all over with a big smile on his face. And after a while, he pulled himself out of the chair, and they were looking at him like, why did you do that? And he said, well, I had my turn. And they said, oh, no, this is yours. Yeah. He said, when you give people these chairs, they grab your hand, they cry, they thank you, and they often say a prayer, and they always smile. And here's the thing that he began to realize. He said, most of us think of a wheelchair as confinement. But to millions of people, it is freedom. It is freedom to move. It is freedom to go to school. It is freedom to get a job. A wheelchair for them is hope, self-reliance, independence, and dignity. And there's another story, he said, that means a lot to him. He said, we had a woman from Mexico who had worked for us for 12 years. And so she told him about Angel, a nephew of hers, who had lost his vision and lost his mobility and had only a short time to live, but could have really benefited by a wheelchair. So as he brought all the wheelchairs down to Mexico City, he got in contact with them. The parents brought in the boy. The boy got into the wheelchair. Again, tears, parents in tears, the child in tears. And the boy took his hands and looked up. He says, looked up at me with his blind eyes, into my face, into my eyes, and said, thank you. I'll see you in heaven. I know. And he said, I was speechless. He said, this wheelchair mission is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. I used to give money to good causes because I felt obliged. He said, but it wasn't coming from my heart. Giving is not a duty, it's a joy. Giving is not a duty, it's a joy. So seek first the kingdom of wholeness is the final thing that I want to get across, is that there's no need to continue to look for fulfillment in the external world, in all the wrong places. The master teacher Jesus pointed the way to fulfillment and the experience of wholeness when he said, seek first the kingdom. And translated into modern day words, seek first the consciousness of wholeness, or seek first the consciousness of our divine selves, our true selves. And then to that he says, and all else is added. So it's just a reminder that our work is in consciousness. Our work is always in consciousness if we truly want to transform ourselves and our lives. Trying to fix things in the external world without changing consciousness, I've heard described as rearranging the deck furniture on the Titanic as it's going down. Consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. And how do we do that? We do that through spiritual practices. That's one of the things that we teach here, is the beautiful affirmative prayer that we call spiritual mind treatment. It's a great way to live from your wholeness and use the power of your word through a series of statements. It's very, it might feel odd to people at first because they're used to talking to a God out there. But since we know the divine is within, we speak from that divine presence. And so it is a different way of praying, but it's so powerful. And I invite you, it doesn't make the other form of prayer wrong. It's just another way of just tuning into that wholeness. And then there's visioning, catching a higher vision for our lives. It's a beautiful contemplative process. And then there's meditation, which allows us to commune with the divine presence within ourselves and to reach that state of wholeness and unity. And there are lots of other practices that go with it, whether it's forgiveness, journaling, working with a practitioner, spiritual study, spiritual fellowship, which is what we're doing today. All of these are ways that we can open our hearts, open our minds to the wholeness that we are, to embrace our wholeness. And so that's the call this month, embracing wholeness, standing in our wholeness. And so I'm going to invite you to tune in to yourselves, tune into that true self, remembering we are eternal beings on an eternal journey, and this is one stop along the way, this particular incarnation. And that's the essence that we're speaking to, that we're speaking from right now. So I'd like you to join me in speaking from that wholeness by saying, I am whole, perfect, and complete right now. Ready? I am whole, perfect, and complete right now. That is the truth of your spirit essence. And then I'd like you to turn to somebody else and say, you are whole, perfect, and complete right now.
You are whole, perfect, and complete right now.
Love it, love it. All right, so let's turn within. And I'm going to speak this word of truth, knowing that right here, right now, in this very perfect and present moment, there is one source, one life, one presence, one power, the great all in all that I call God, that life that lives in, through, and as each one of us. Each one of us are God, having a unique expression, a unique way of being. I'm God having a Kathleen experience, and you are, and just say that with me. Say your name. I am God having a Kathleen experience. A Dean experience. That presence of God is having a Dean experience over there. All right, and so just knowing that this truth of our being is one of unity. There's no place where God begins and leaves off, but because God is all in all. And so with that clear knowing, I speak this word, claiming and knowing that each one of us are open, available, and ready to embrace that wholeness right here and right now through that spoken word. And I'm knowing that what happens from this moment forward is something new, something amazing, something beautiful, something fantastic, and it is appearing right here and right now in each and every one. There are new thoughts, new awarenesses, new expressions, new ways of seeing, new ways of perceiving that uplifts each individual, that is a blessing to everyone in their lives, that is a blessing to our planet. And I'm so grateful for this awareness and for this knowing, and I release this word into the omni-action of universal law, knowing that it is fulfilled. And I invite you to join me in saying, yes! And so it is. Thank you.